kneeling hip flexion, pails and rails. This one is a little bit easier to set up in that you don't need a lot of equipment. You just need the ground. So from this position, we're going to essentially get into a deep like lunge stance here. And if we're at this point, we have at least some capacity of the back hip to get into this extended position. That's kind of what you need in order to really challenge this hip flexion. Usually, if we're doing this, we're not going to start with it right here. But there are different situations that we can possibly address with that. Key is we're going to get into as much deep hip flexion as possible with this knee in front of the chest. So if we're just training hip flexion, our knee is going to be in front of the hip right here. So from this position, I'm going to first rest for 2 minutes, right? We always rest for 2 minutes, start the pails and rails. Then from that, I'm going to drive the foot down for the pails. And then I'm going to try to drive my knee up into my chest for my rails. Because I'm in such a deep flex position, obviously this knee's not going to move. And if you can even get a stretch where you're even just like here and do a pail, pushing down, rail, pulling up, that's completely fine because you get into here with your hands on the ground. That's a relatively deep position for my torso to be in. The more my torso goes forward, the harder that movement is going to be, the harder it is to feel the stuff here and the stuff in the backside hip. So feel free to start up here as best you can. Just the more you sink forward, the deeper that hip gets into flexion, the harder it's going to be. Make sure there's not too much, tight stuff up here. There's going to be a little bit, but we don't want to go excessive where it's like hard pinching or anything. We want most of the stretch to be in the backside hip, driving down for the pails, pulling up for the rails.